למען ציון לא אחשה, ולמען ירושלים לא אשקוט.
You are listening to Hebrew Voices with Nehemia Gordon. Thank you for supporting Nehemia's Makor Hebrew Foundation. Learn more at nehemiaswall.com.
Shalom, this is Nehemia Gordon with Hebrew Voices, bringing you a special episode in honor of the biblical festival of Purim. Purim is a celebration of a miracle of God's intervention in history. It's recorded in the scroll of Esther, and it took place during the reign of the Persian King Ahasuerus. In English, I think you pronounce that Ahasuerus or something like that. And during these events described in the scroll of Esther, the Jews narrowly avert total and complete genocide at the hands of Haman. And I think at the dawn of the 21st century, we have a better appreciation of Purim than we did in the past, because we know what genocide looks like. Now, in Jewish culture, we have this strange tradition on Purim that if you've never heard of it, you might think I'm making it up, but it's true. And the tradition is to get drunk, and I mean really for schnickered. In fact, the Talmud teaches that it's a requirement to get so drunk you can't tell the difference between Haman and Mordecai. Now, this certainly isn't commanded in the Torah or even anywhere in the Hebrew Bible, but it really is deeply entrenched in Jewish culture. In fact, I've seen Jews who are quite lax in their observance of God's holy and eternal commandments, but when it comes to Purim and getting drunk on Purim, you would think these are the most devout Jews you've ever met. I'll be honest, I've always been uncomfortable with this. The book of Proverbs warns against heavy intoxication. For example, chapter 23, verses 29 to 35. It says there about getting drunk, quote, "It bites like a snake, it stings like an adder." In other words, alcohol has the potential to be like poison. I want to be clear, I'm not preaching here against drinking alcohol in moderation. Somebody say in moderation, for those who can handle it. But there are some people who can't handle it. And this week's episode is really about alcoholism as a spiritual disease. Now, what inspired me to do this episode was a few weeks ago, I was listening to this podcast called Hardcore History with Dan Carlin. I got to tell you guys, this right now is my favorite podcast besides Hebrew Voices. The guy's amazing. He'll do like these 4-hour episodes, and then sometimes he'll do a series of 6 episodes, 4 hours each, 24 hours. I'm jealous. No, we've got to do this. I'm trying to limit this to an hour, and the guy does 4 hours. Amazing, Dan Carlin. And he has this episode where he's talking about how alcohol and drug abuse sometimes played a pivotal role in history. And it is a role that's often overlooked. And he brings this example of Napoleon Bonaparte, the greatest general of all time. And it turns out the night before the Battle of Waterloo, the most important battle of his career, Napoleon smoked opium. And the next morning, he was, still coming off of those effects. And Dan Carlin, in his Hardcore History, says, what would history have been like? How would it have turned out if drugs hadn't been involved? And look, here's a painful example I got to bring. Hitler, may his name and memory be blotted out. It's been well documented now that he was an amphetamine addict. And they show these videos at the end of his life where his hand's shaking, and the experts say that that's actually the result of amphetamine use. And amphetamines make you paranoid. And this guy was nuts to begin with. What did amphetamines do for him? And one of the coolest examples that Carlin brings is Ogedai Khan, who was the son and heir of Genghis Khan. In the year 1241, Ogedai Khan literally drank himself to death. Now, this was a man who ruled the largest empire in world history. And now Ogedai's family knew he had a drinking problem, and at one point assigned a minder to follow him everywhere he went, try and get him to stop drinking. Eventually, Ogedai, the emperor, he pledges to limit his drinking to 1 cup a day. He's the emperor, so what does he do? He has a giant cup made, and he drinks himself to death. And when he dies, this throws the Mongol Empire into upheaval. Now, all this got me thinking about if that was the role of alcohol abuse in world history, what was its role in Jewish history? And of course, we've got the story in the Torah of it's in the Torah pearls, guys. I don't want to rehash it. But, with Noah and what happened with him. And it's not what you might think. Go listen to the Torah pearls on Noah. It's pretty bad. All because of alcohol. Now, what about Purim? Purim was a series of drunken decisions that nearly ended in genocide, but were miraculously inverted in favor of a bloody civil war. Like, that's the happy ending. Instead of genocide, we have a bloody civil war. And the story opens with Ahasuerus deposing his queen during a drunken stupor. He regrets it as soon as he sobers up. And a key part of the plot is Ahasuerus turning over the day-to-day running of his operations, of his empire, to the Jew hater Haman so he can focus on his drinking habit. And Haman gives him money. Basically, Haman gives him beer money so he can continue on his drinking binges. And then the emperor, Ahasuerus, is presumably too drunk or too hungover to notice that Haman is issuing orders in his name to wipe out the Jews. And during a drunken rage, he eventually orders Haman to be executed, which that was the happy ending part of it. Now, for this episode, I decided to find out, how does Judaism deal with alcoholism? I mean, modern Judaism today. And to do this, I met up with a man named Rabbi Mike Gondelman. He's known as Big Mike. Big Mike he's the guy's 6'9", ex-football player. He's the founder and director of the Jerusalem Sober House, a 12-step based recovery program in Israel for Jews of all backgrounds. Big Mike holds a certified addictions and substance abuse professional, international certification from the IC and RC, and a bachelor's degree in Judaic studies from Or Sameach Yeshiva. His experience includes running group therapy sessions, individual counseling, drug testing, assessments, and crisis intervention at some of the most well-known yeshivas in Jerusalem. In addition to this, he also spent many years in the streets of Jerusalem volunteering his time working with at-risk youth. Big Mike came to Israel from New York in 2001 and currently lives in Jerusalem with his wife and 4 children. Now, Big Mike, and by the way, if you guys heard the Holy City Soccer episode where I was talking with Ari Lewis at it's an amazing episode, guys, got to go listen to it. And he mentions there, he says something about Roll Tide, and I'm like, wait, why'd you say that? He says, I don't know, but Big Mike always says Roll Tide. Turns out Big Mike was a football player in Alabama, not at the Crimson Tide, but some other team. But he was a big fan and still is of Alabama. Roll Tide. Well, Big Mike launched our conversation by offering this profound insight in what for me was always one of the really big mysteries of the Scroll of Esther, this little part of the plot I didn't understand. And it turns out to be something that gets at the very core of King Ahasuerus' character, and indeed something that drives the narrative of this entire biblical book. So here he is, Big Mike.
You're talking about a guy who was a blackout drinker.
Clearly.
In the 6th chapter in the book of Esther.
Yeah.
You know, what does he do? I think it was the 6th chapter, you know, where he opens up, he's looking at the book of all these royal decrees and this, that, and everything else.
Yeah.
And he sees like somebody saved his life.
And he doesn't remember that.
Yeah, he's got no clue whatsoever.
Oh, I never heard. That's such a
You
great
know, the
explanation.
guy's a blackout drinker.
So that's why he didn't remember. It's so interesting. Whenever I read that, I'm like, so how is it he doesn't remember somebody who saved his life?
He's a blackout drinker.
Do you know what it reminded me? The way I always thought of it, half jokingly, you know, there's this theme in The Simpsons. Whenever, what's the guy's name? Mr. Burns. Whenever he meets Homer Simpson, he says, who is that guy? And his assistant says, that's Homer Simpson, sir. And it's like he's never heard of the guy before, even though, like, you know, they've had all these like life incidences together. But you're saying he could be a blackout drunk, and that's why he doesn't remember. That's an amazing insight that I would have never gotten.
Well, I'm an alcoholic, so it works nice like that.
There you go. That's wonderful.
You know,
the word mishteh, which means a drinking party, appears 19 times in the Scroll of Esther, which is amazing, and it's a central theme.
But think about that for a second. You know, it's like 19 times we're talking about
19 times in what, 9 chapters, 9.5 chapters, right? 10,
right, but 10
technically
chapters
10.
You know, whatever.
Yeah, it's
but,
like 3 verses in chapter 10, whatever.
Exactly.
9 chapters, really.
It's still a full chapter.
19 times. It's a central theme.
But what is it saying? It says alcohol is like, be wary of it. You know, it's like
so this is where I have the problem.
Like,
because in Jewish
like,
tradition,
like, be careful. Like, don't drink too much. This is what's going to happen. Your life's going to be upended. You're going to be destroyed over what? Over a drink? Really? Is that single malt that worth it?
So it's pretty clear that the message of Purim is that, you know, bad things can happen if you abuse alcohol. I mean, you know.
Well, it's more than just that. I mean, think about it.
I mean, we're talking genocide basically almost happened because of it.
Hold on. But you see, here's the thing that you don't even understand from a program perspective.
Yeah. By program, you mean the 12-step
Yeah,
program.
I mean, Alcoholics Anonymous, Narcotics Anonymous, yada, yada, yada. There's like almost 300 different, 12-step groups nowadays. It was an explosion. From 2 white guys in Ohio, you know, it like exploded into like almost 300 different groups.
Wow. I mean, it's not just alcohol.
Yeah, I mean, you got everything from Coda to Overeater, Codependents Anonymous, to Overeaters Anonymous, to Marijuana Anonymous. You have like Heroin Anonymous, Cocaine Anonymous, you know.
All right, so from a program perspective.
From a program perspective, what are you talking about? You're talking about people who are lacking spirituality, you know, and they're searching for stuff, and so they're trying to fill it up.
So basically, Ahasuerus and Ogedai Khan, they're trying to, you know, they're like, I got this whole empire. What am I going to do with my life? And they just drink themselves.
Yeah, like really think about it. It starts off saying he's the ruler of 127 countries. You know?
Wow.
You know, like you're in charge.
He's the King of Kings.
Exactly.
That was his title, King of Kings.
Exactly. You're the leader of 127 nations. You've got the hottest woman in the world which apparently that's what Vashti was.
Was she? Okay.
Apparently. Right, but why? But what's the importance of recognizing? I know, right? Go figure.
No, go on.
You know, I've got my listen. This is what happens when an addict gets smicha and becomes a rabbi. You know what I mean? It's like it's like you're just like, well, this is just not right. That's just not right.
All right. So here's the thing. Here's where I struggle with this. So the message to me is pretty clear.
So he's focusing on what is he focusing on? He's focusing on this physical.
Yeah. Meaning King Ahasuerus.
Yeah, King Ahasuerus, right? Everything is about the physical. Like, you give me more stuff. You give me the better iPhone. You give me the fancier car. You give me the nicer house. You give me this gold bracelet. You give me this gold watch. You give me the Rolex, this, that. I mean, where does it end?
And he's lacking spirituality.
Exactly.
And I want to talk about that as we, when we get to it, that the 12 steps is really a spiritual program, not just about not drinking alcohol. But here, I want to bring this, and this is from the Megillah. It's actually the Talmud tractate of Megillah 7b, and it's in the name of Rava. And it says, a man is obliged to intoxicate himself in Purim till he cannot distinguish between cursed be Haman and blessed be Mordechai. So how do we have this in Jewish tradition? And this is definitely how it's carried out. It was interesting. I was recently traveling with this friend of mine who's a Southern Baptist Christian, and in his whole life he's never had alcohol. And he's never even been around people who drink alcohol. And he was talking to this person who was saying that the guy was saying he was a Christian. And
that's impressive. I just got to put that to all your listeners out there. That's impressive.
Well, here's what was really what opened my eyes and kind of got me thinking of wanting to do this interview. So he met this gentleman who introduced himself as a Christian, and the guy was drinking a beer. And afterward, he says to me, Nehemia, that guy wasn't a Christian. I'm like, well, what do you mean? He believes in what you believe. And he said, no, if he's drinking alcohol and smoking, he's not a Christian. And so that's like, wow, that's a completely different concept that we have in Judaism, where there, in some instances, there's a sacred function to alcohol.
Well, for sure. In Judaism, we drink l'chaim, to life. That's what we're drinking. We drink to raise up life. That's what we do. It's like,
well, so we've got the 4 cups on Pesach, and it's funny because my father every year did the 4 cups of grape juice, and one year he decided to be really, machmir, really stringent and devout. And he of blessed memory was a rabbi, and he so one year he tried to do the wine, and I think he fell asleep after the 2nd cup. He just couldn't. He wasn't an alcohol drinker. But we do have this sacred function, and look, there's synagogues where they do the machia, where on after services they'll actually hand out shots.
Yeah, well, there's a whole thing from the OU that came out, was it last year or 2 years ago?
Which is the Orthodox Union of Rabbis. So what did they come out with?
So they came out with the whole thing about the Kiddush clubs.
What's that? Tell me. I have no what Kiddush clubs are. No idea.
Kiddush clubs are in America. What will happen is that after the Torah is read, guys will.
Oh, the old men.
They go and they have some herring and they have a couple shots of whiskey. And,
I didn't know it was called the Kiddush club, but yeah, okay.
Yeah, and then they came out against it because people were they were not praying anymore. They just went to shul to get drunk. And they were ignoring their families.
Well, but the point is, in some...
Now, mind you, that's not everybody.
Right. No, but in some, especially Sephardic shuls, synagogues, they will do this, where they do the machia, which is the arak. I think it's they'll do shots. And so recently my nephew had his bar mitzvah, and my brother-in-law walked around with a bottle of whiskey pouring shots for everybody. And you had a drink in order to, to show that you were participating in his simcha, in his joyous occasion. So how do we reconcile the message of Purim with this statement that a man's obliged to intoxicate himself? And before we started recording, you were telling me that might be a mistranslation.
Yeah, I definitely think it's
so. Let's talk about that, because this is the way it's interpreted as man's required to intoxicate himself.
Of course, because people want to see what they want to see. Okay. Listen, you go to Rabbi Dr. Avram Twersky, he will who's a much bigger person than I am, and a much holier man than I am. He will tell you that it's very clear that you don't need to drink at all in Purim, and he will explain to you how and the whys and the whats and everything about it. And it's like, just take a nap.
And incidentally, the word there, libasome, in Aramaic here in the Talmud, probably means something more literally like to be fragranced until one doesn't know, can't distinguish between cursed be Haman and blessed be Mordechai. And they're inferring to be fragranced means to be drunk. And you're saying it doesn't.
I'm saying it doesn't necessarily mean it.
It doesn't have to mean that.
Exactly. One of the things about Judaism is that we find is that words very often have double or triple or quadruple meanings. And it's like, so the idea, what is it really saying?
Yeah. So how do you reconcile this? So basically, anyway, this is why I thought, okay, we have this holiday where Jews around Jerusalem are going to go around and in the name of their faith are going to be getting drunk. And you may say that's wrong. That's not what the Talmud says.
Listen, I'll tell you like this.
But it's what's going to happen.
It is what's going to happen. You know what I do on Purim?
What do you do?
I take a nap.
You take a nap.
And I'm mechayim the mitzvah.
Okay. That means you fulfill the commandment.
Yes, I fulfill the commandment by taking the nap. And you know what?
Oh, because while you take the nap, you can't tell the difference between Haman and Mordechai.
Exactly.
Oh, okay, because you're asleep. Okay, but anyway, I thought it would be appropriate in this spirit to talk about the 12 steps. And so here we are at the Jerusalem Sober House. And in a little bit, we're gonna get up and we're gonna actually walk around and get a tour of this house.
Awesome.
And but now I just want to talk about, so in one of your videos that I saw on YouTube, and by the way, guys, go to my website, nehemiaswall.com. There'll be a link to Big Mike's YouTube channel. There'll be a link to his website. And actually, there's some really interesting videos you have. So I got to bring up a sensitive topic here. So I grew up in Chicago, being told
sorry to hear that.
Me too. Anyway, so I grew up being told that Jews don't have a problem with alcohol, that's a problem that the Gentiles have.
Yes.
And that's why I thought it was important to come to a Jerusalem sober living house where they're dealing with 12 steps and alcoholics. And, because it's kind of like, oh, we can get really drunk on Purim because we don't have a problem with alcohol. But that's not really true, is it?
I mean, listen, you're talking about a disease.
Yeah. So you're the expert. Is it less common in Judaism to have for alcoholism? Or,
no,
or is it just as common in your population?
It's just as common.
So tell us what you deal with here at the Jerusalem Sober House.
What I deal with is we're primary drugs and alcohol.
Okay.
We're old school like that. It's like, you want to shoot up a little heroin, great, come to me. You want to snort a little
This is like the meat and potatoes stuff.
Yeah, I'm a meat and potatoes kind of guy, apparently.
Meat and potatoes 12 steps.
Another thing that's crazy is like I myself am a junkie. I'm a heroin addict, right? 6 years.
You actually are a heroin addict.
Yeah, I actually am a heroin addict. I haven't touched heroin since March 1st of 1995. But when I got clean off of heroin, it was actually heroin. Maybe a little black tar, but
I don't know what that is, but okay.
So let's just let that go.
Okay.
But like it's but it is what it is. Nowadays they're mixing it with fentanyl and all this other stuff where you're not getting this pure heroin anymore. You're getting all these chemicals into it, and you're just and it's making it much more potent than what it once was.
Oh, really?
And it's much more dangerous.
Wow.
It's scary. And then then we got to detox these guys and get them sober. And that's
so tell me, I understand that you actually found God through the 12 steps.
Yes, I did.
Is that the whole story? Boy, that was quick.
Yep, there we go. I found him in the 12. No, I came into the room as an atheist.
And the rooms, you mean the rooms of
Alcoholics Anonymous, Narcotics Anonymous.
Okay.
And they started talking about this God business, and I was like,
you're like, get me out of here, or what?
It's like, yeah.
So let's back up. You're Jewish.
Yes.
And you're an atheist Jewish football player who likes heroin. I mean, that's basically,
among other things.
Okay. So, like, were you raised with religion, or?
I was raised in a traditional home.
Like traditional, like Orthodox?
No, conservative.
Oh, conservative. Okay. So how do you go from going to synagogue on the high holidays to being an atheist? How did that happen?
I mean, because it was crap. Like, you have to understand, like, I remember I had this friend. And
well, let's assume my listeners know nothing about why it's crap.
Okay, so I had this friend, and I was going over to her house after shul, after synagogue that day. And what happened? We're not allowed to have lights on Shabbos. We can't turn electricity on and off.
Mm-hmm.
So my friend's mother screamed at me because I turned the light on in the synagogue. But when we got back to the house, she's like sitting there turning lights on and off, cooking, all the stuff that, you're not allowed to do in the shul, she was doing in her house. So I asked her, I says, what are you doing? You told me that we couldn't turn lights on and off because it was Shabbos, but now you're doing it here. Yeah. She's like, but that's at shul and this is in the house. I'm like, well, if it's wrong.
So that didn't make sense for you.
Yeah, if it
didn't make sense to me either. Okay.
But it was like the idea of like, we want what we want, and we don't care that it doesn't make sense. We don't care that it's...
So that somehow led you to being an atheist?
Yeah, because what did I say?
Turned you off of God? Or?
I mean, well, it's stuff like that. And then you had like, I remember we had a guy who was like, he was sleeping around the shul. It was like ridiculous. Like all these married women, it was just like destroying marriages, and he didn't care.
And this is in the context of the synagogue.
Yeah.
He wasn't the rabbi, was he?
He was the rabbi.
Ah, okay. So basically you see someone who's supposed to represent God who's acting ungodly, and you're like, well, there must not be a God.
Right.
There can't. And that's interesting. I've heard that quite a bit. Okay. So you go from there to you're the football player and you're doing drugs and you come into AA and they're talking about God and you're like, yeah, right.
So yeah, and like, and it was just, and I stayed sober for a year and a half, the first time I walked in, and I relapsed. And then when
So wait a minute. So isn't some of the 12 steps talking about God? How did you do that if you were an atheist?
Because to find God for me.
So your definition of God was what?
Good orderly direction, group of drunks. I mean, God's just
so the
a higher
group was
power.
God.
Yeah.
Okay. So how did that change for you?
I died.
You died?
Yeah, I died and came back to life.
What are you talking about? What do you mean you died? You can't just throw that out there.
I can. I just did, didn't I?
What?
I had an overdose, a drug overdose.
Oh, okay. So
they
you were
shot me,
clinically dead or
yeah,
something?
I was clinically dead. And
Oh,
They
okay.
brought me back to life.
Okay, so you had a death. I mean, they would call that a near-death experience, but you're saying you died.
No, I mean, like, my heart stopped beating. I mean, wouldn't that mean I'm dead? I mean,
I don't know.
listen, to the Catholics who are listening, that when I was given last rites,
Were you really?
I was given last rites. I woke up with an ashy cross on my head.
Wait, I don't understand. What? There was a Catholic priest there that gave you last rites?
Yeah, I don't know. It was a Catholic hospital. What can I say?
So you literally were given last rites?
Yeah.
Wow. Like, I think they also call it like final unction or something. I don't know.
I don't know.
I don't even know if they still do that. Do they? Whatever. Anyway, so you were considered dead. Wow.
Yeah. They actually did call
Wow.
time of death, apparently.
Wow.
And they turned off the machines, and then I woke up.
What?
Yeah.
They turned off and you were just going to throw out there, I died and move on. Like, wait a minute. They turned off the machines and you woke up.
And I went from an atheist to an agnostic immediately.
Wow. Wow.
And
Wow. What happened after that?
I'm stuck in the hospital bed with tubes in and out of every hole in my body. They even cut one in my side to find another one for my lungs. And because, there wasn't enough holes there to begin with.
Wow. And all this is by the drug overdose.
Yeah, and I'm like, got a respirator in. I've got tubes and oxygen and IVs, and I couldn't move. So all I could do was think. I'm like, how am I here right now? And the doctor was in the emergency room, comes over to me. And he was this Indian guy, like Indian. And he was just like, he's like, I don't know how you're alive right now.
Wow.
He's like, and he's pale. He's like, he's just trying to figure out like what had happened. He's like, we did everything we could to save you.
Yeah.
And you were dead.
Wow.
And you came back. And he was just like, it threw him for a loop. Like, obviously threw him for a loop. And I was there, and I was just like,
wow.
I have no idea. I just woke up.
Wow.
Like I was sleeping.
Wow.
You know what I mean? Like, here I am lying on the bed. They're doing all this crap to me, and I had no idea what the hell's going on. And I'm just like, and I wake up, and I'm like, massive pain, and I'm just like, where am I? How did I get here? And I couldn't move, and I couldn't get up. I was just done. Obviously, they turned the machines back on, and monitors and everything.
Okay.
I was having trouble breathing, and which you would too if you had a tube stuck down your throat.
Yeah.
Just pointing that out.
Okay. So at this point, you've gone from an atheist to an agnostic, and
Yeah, I just didn't know. And then when I came back into the rooms 2 months later,
in the AA rooms.
yeah, in AA rooms, I just started thinking about it. I just started thinking about God and trying to understand like where he was and what he was. And then it was like the more I understood about God, the less because the second step talks about choosing your own concept of God. And for me, I couldn't choose my own concept of God. I couldn't be like, George Burns sitting in a lazy boy smoking a cigarette going, it's like, when you're ready, I got some good ideas here. It's like that wasn't happening,
I don't think the young people have any idea what you're talking about, but go on.
Yeah, well, it's like I couldn't see this blue-eyed, long-haired Jesus, or I couldn't see like something like that. I just couldn't see it. Like that's not what God was to me.
So what was God to you?
That's the thing. I didn't know.
Okay.
Like really, what is he? And like I converted to and I started looking for God. And I converted to 10 different religions.
Really?
I got baptized 3 times. I've
into what?
Well, it depends on which baptism, I mean.
Oh, so were you a Muslim at one point?
I mean, no, I never did Islam, but I did a whole bunch of I've done a lot of Eastern religions.
Oh, really? So you explored lots of different religions. Okay.
Yeah, I explored a lot of different religions.
Okay.
I'm just saying, some of those, remember I went to college in Alabama. Some of that baptism is you're they just dunk you in a river, and you're like, really? It's like the Catholics just pour a little water on your forehead, It's like.
So you had different experiences, okay?
Yeah, but you want to know something, though?
Yeah.
It was crazy spiritual.
It was.
It really was.
Like you felt something when they were dunking you in the river.
Yeah, I really did.
What about when they were sprinkling you with the water?
It was a different type of spirituality.
But you did feel something in both of them.
Yeah, I did.
Wow.
And it was interesting because when I was in Alabama, I would go to the black churches.
Let's take a step back. So you have a bachelor's degree in Judaic studies from a yeshiva, and you're a rabbi.
Yes.
And you're telling me when you were baptized into different Christian denominations, you felt something spiritual.
Yes.
Wow. I did not expect to hear that.
Listen, when I was in college in Alabama, I used to go to the black churches, right?
Yeah.
And I went there because I would, on the weekends I'd go home with the guys from the football team.
Mm-hmm.
And it was, it was nice. It was like, these are people who had a nice, simple belief in a higher power. They chose their belief would be to Jesus Christ. And it was a nice, simple thing. And Jesus had complete control in their lives. And he saved them and he protected them and he took care of them. I mean.
So how did you get from that to being a rabbi?
Well, that's a long story, but the short version is that, I don't know, like, it didn't seem right to me. There's always something missing.
Okay.
You know? Like, between the Orthodox and, and the Catholics and the Baptists and,
Orthodox Christians, you mean?
The Orthodox Christians, and the Lutherans and then you have the Gnostic Christians, which just totally screw you up.
That exists today, the Gnostic Christians?
Yeah. I actually know quite a few.
Okay.
Which really just, it's...
And all this is because you weren't a Southern Baptist. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah, no.
Go on.
So the more I searched, the more I remember being in... The one good thing about being in New York.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I was based in Rockland County. It's like 45 minutes outside of Manhattan, right? Within an hour of there, I had at least 30 different religions that had some sort of worship, a place of worship.
Like active religions with a center you could go to.
Like, you even have like a Zoroastrianism church.
Seriously?
Yeah.
Did you get involved in that for a while?
I started talking to a guy who was in it.
Wow.
The whole concept is cool, the dualistic religion, There's two gods fighting.
Call it cool, but okay.
Listen, I didn't say I believed it, but I'm saying,
okay.
But the concept is cool. Like, it's two brothers fighting over the fate of the universe.
Okay, I hear you. It's an interesting concept.
It's like Buddhism, Taoism, Hinduism, Shintoism. You name it, Islam, Christianity. Like, it's all there.
So then, how did you decide Judaism?
Judaism decided me.
How did that happen?
Because I had this little Chabad lady in my ear. Wonderful woman. She carved me, and
translate that into English. She brought you close to Judaism.
Yeah, she brought me close to Judaism,
Like, how'd you do that?
I mean, we were looking, as I was looking at all these different religions.
Yeah.
She'd be like, in all these other religions you keep looking at, Judaism is in each of these religions. And she would show me how this came from Judaism, and that came to Judaism, and that came to... She herself was a Baal Tshuva, was someone who was out of the flock and then came back.
Mm-hmm.
It's like...
Yeah.
I kept like looking at all these different religions and everything. Oh, look, here's Judaism here, and here's Judaism there, and here's Judaism here. It's all about love. If you really read the first book of the Torah, Bereshit or Genesis, however you want to call it, what do you see? God talks about the heavens and the earth, and he talks about, but he doesn't talk about that anymore. He talks about creating, all these different things, and then he doesn't talk about it. And then he gets to man, and he stops talking about everything else. And then he only talks about righteous men from there. And then he talks about how to be a righteous man, because that's really all God cares about, is how to be a righteous man and how to do it with love. Over and over again, it's all about the love. It's love. It's love. And it's like, it's like crazy, but he's all about the love. And it's just like, and we forget that. And we forget that side of the thing,
Look, that's not something that I think we hear a lot in Judaism, that God is all about the love, that,
But that's part of the...
That's certainly not the perception that non-Jews have of the Jewish faith.
Because that's part of the problem. Part of the problem is that we've gone away from that. Rabbi Baruch Ber, who was the Mashgiach in the Mir in the 20s and 30s, right? He
was kind of like the the supervisor in the yeshiva,
the spiritual guide, and so of the guys in yeshiva, which is a place where guys sit and learn.
Right. Mir would be like the Oxford of Eastern Europe, or in the Jewish world.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeshivas,
right? And he would give guys the fourth aliyah to the Torah, if they'd screwed up. And
what that refers to is when they read from the Torah on Shabbat, 7 different people will read from the Torah or make the blessing. And the fourth aliyah is the fourth person to read. And what's the significance of that?
The fourth one has the least amount of chashivish. So
least importance. Oh, okay.
Because
it's in the middle, so it's least important.
Right. So then, to all the middle children out there, I'm one.
I'm a middle child too.
There you go. That's the spirit. We are not the least important. We are the most important. Just don't forget.
Roll Tide.
Roll Tide. All right. And not only that, I'm also a Jets fan. So Jets, Jets. All right, you can keep that one in there. All right, but he would give the fourth aliyah, right? Because and then he would tell them to do a cheshbon nefesh, which is like a moral inventory, of like, and you'd have to check out like where you screwed up, what you did wrong, to improve upon yourself. So you're like, that was the whole idea, like improvement, self-improvement, like making yourself better, like becoming the best person you can be. That's what Judaism is all about. Judaism is so much about love, but we've gone away from that. We've gone away from this concept that like, why? Because part of the reason is that we've lost the abilities, because we're so focused on so many other things. Like, it's like, Like, anti-Semitism has been around for 5,000 years. Great, Mazel Tov. Get used to it already. We're used to it. Get over it.
Move on.
Move on, all right? So, like, okay, great, they hate us, Mazel Tov, but somehow we're still here. The beauty of it is that, like, as we get close to this the day of Purim, which is one of the holiest days of the year where we can pray to God, and we're there with each other, and, like, I just want to offer up a prayer to everybody out there.
Please pray, Rabbi.
I pray that we all look at our lives and we all see what we're grateful for. And we recognize how much gratitude we have and how much good that we have in our lives. And we pay it forward to somebody who doesn't have as much as we do.
Mm-hmm.
And we spread that love, spread that care and that warmth to each other.
Mm-hmm. Amen.
Amen.
All right. Excellent. Thank you. Wow. That was an amazing conversation. Unbelievable. When I was done talking with Big Mike, he showed me around the sober living facility, the Jerusalem Sober House, and he took me up to the roof, and he showed me one of the most amazing views of Jerusalem, and I recorded that. I want to share that with you guys. It's amazing. Listen to this. You won't believe it. Unbelievable. I love Jerusalem, and I love Big Mike.
We're having fun with this interview. All right, let's go up another flight.
I don't think I'm going to hit my head. Big Mike, how tall are you?
I am 6'9".
You just watch my head. I'm only 6 foot. I didn't even have to duck.
Okay. All right.
Wow, this is an amazing view, Big Mike. Are you kidding me?
No, I told you it was worth it. This is absolutely phenomenal.
Oh, wow. This is quite a view of Jerusalem. We're in this northern neighborhood, and what we do is get to look down really on the central part of the city. Where's my house? I live in Baca.
Baca, you can't see Baca from here.
That's way in the south side. We can't even see it.
You on the other side, brother. All right, so anyway. Yeah, this is Har Sophim, which is actually very interesting.
That's my alma mater, Hebrew University, Mount Scopus.
There you go. But see, the interesting thing about Har Sophim is I opened up a rehab not too far away from, guess what? The second largest pharmaceutical company in the world. It's like one of the factors.
Is that Teva?
Teva, yes, that is Teva. But they're right there, so. Which, thank God, they have a ton of security.
Wait a minute. So is Teva that building that we see right in front of us?
The one that says Teva on it? Yes.
So this is the Jerusalem Sober House, and they come up here and they're being taunted by Teva. And the irony is that the word Teva, I think Americans say Teva, but the word Teva means nature, which is kind of ironic for a pharmaceutical company.
Exactly, especially one that made its money on generic drugs. Anyway, but yeah, so
gotta love Israel.
Exactly.
Tell everybody about the giant building that looks like the second temple.
It's not the second temple, actually. That's the third temple, and that's the Bell Shul. You got to pray.
That's the Bubba verse. That's the bells.
That's the bells, right? So you got to see it. You got to it's actually like one of the national monuments. It's designed exactly what the third temple is supposed to look like. From the outside. The inside's a little different, but when you pray in there, there's like 6,000 people praying at once.
Have you prayed there?
Yes, I have. It's an intense experience.
Wow.
When you're all praying the same prayers at once, it's phenomenal. Like I remember in 1995, I went to the AA convention in San Diego. It was like 60,000 people saying the Serenity Prayer. Wow. I may not be right about the numbers, but it was like, there's power to it. There's a power when we're all praying for the same thing at that moment.
And I should point out in Judaism, or I should say in Orthodox Judaism specifically, you don't use electrical devices on Shabbat. So in a synagogue, there's no microphones. So that really limits the number of people in most synagogues to around 200-300 is a big synagogue. And here you have a synagogue that was designed acoustically for, how many did you say?
I think it's 6,000.
Wow. Okay.
So, and it's crazy because he's heard the entire place because it just echoes off the walls. But see, that's the beauty of it.
The cantor is standing there and every 6,000 people can hear him without a microphone.
Exactly.
Wow, that's impressive.
But the idea being is like we have all the different neighborhoods from here and we can see it. Like that's the Jerusalem Forest down there. That's like, the central bus station, and that's like the Spire, it's like so many different things that we have here, and it's like this amazing, gorgeous view, and like
it's really a special view.
It really is, so one of the other therapists who came here to visit this place, a man by the name of Lou Abrams, came up here, he spoke here. It must have been about 3 years ago, And I said, I got to show you something, Lou. So I bring him up to the top. He's like, why would you want to get clean anywhere else? That was his line. He just looked at, he literally stood here for like 20 minutes just like looking at the view. Awesome. And he was like in heaven. So.
Wow. Yeah, this I got to say, is an impressive view.
It is. And it's, it makes it makes me grateful. Like just the whole thing is about gratitude, and like you can see God's presence. You can see like all the beauty of it. Well, I mean, listen, we're at night, so you can't see all the things that you can see during the day. But during the day, you can see ruins from like 3,000 years ago from here, like right down in there. And then and it's like you can see, and with the lights on, you see the modern day world, and you see like everything in between, And it's a simply amazing and beautiful, like, just spectrum of life, from the ultra orthodox to the completely secular.
To Arab villages, like you really have quite a variety here that you can see. To a model of the Third Temple, it's impressive. Quite a view.
Right.
Pretty cool.
And it's, and it's like it's one of those things where you just look at it and you're just like, wow. I'm impressed by what I got here.
So tell me, and so how can somebody support the Jerusalem Sober House, or if they know somebody in need, how could they get get help from the Jerusalem Sober House?
Well, we're in the process of setting up our 501c3. The 501c3 will be ready as of April 1st, we were told. Okay. So that's exciting. So they can simply send us an email.
So by the time most people are listening to this, because people will be listening to this for years to come. So what would how could they do that?
Well, simply send an email to info at, the strudel-looking thing, at JerusalemSoberHouse.com.
Okay, that's how they can contact you.
Yeah, they can contact me there, or they can contact me at Big Mike at JerusalemSoberHouse.com, and that'll go directly to me.
Okay, very cool. All right, so you heard it there. If you want to, somehow support what they're doing here, or if you know somebody who needs help.
Well, if somebody needs help, right, they can go via email. Or we have an American phone number that'll ring on on Israeli phones. Okay. Yeah, it's 845-738-2389.
And we'll post that number and the email address. Well, probably,
and the website, too.
And the website on nehemiaswall.com.
Excellent. That excites me.
Awesome. Okay. Very cool. All right. Very cool.
I'm excited.
Yeah. This is a pretty cool place.
Right.
So here you have like a lifta. I guess that's the 3,000-year-old room.
Yes. It's over there. That's where... that's the well that one of the wells that David HaMelech actually, made. It's a mikveh over there.
Wait. So we're standing and we're looking out. Right now it's black because it's at night. But you're pointing to the spot where King David HaMelech, what did he do?
He went into the mikveh over there, the ritual baths.
So he immersed himself in the water that comes out of that spring and fills up this pool. That's where he went to cleanse himself.
Exactly.
Wow. And this is Jerusalem. Jerusalem's amazing. It really is. You're standing here in the middle of history, looking around, looking at the future of the Third Temple, and looking at something from thousands of years ago from King David, and looking at one of the largest pharmaceutical companies in the world. I mean, what an amazing contrast right here in front of us.
Exactly. It's simply phenomenal. Like you don't even realize when you think, there's a famous quote, I forgot who said it, where Israel is the only country in the world where you can use your Bible as a tour guide.
I said that. No, I'm kidding.
I know, yeah. I forgot who said it, but it's a famous quote.
That's pretty cool. I never heard that.
You never heard that?
No.
I have a lot of tour guides for friends, and they say that a lot. It's like one of those cliche lines for them. It's like, oh wow, that's so cool.
Like I've done that, used the Bible as my tour guide, but I never heard anybody say it quite like that.
It's simply amazing. It's like, I play football, obviously, right? And I was playing with some friends, and we're like, so when
tell us about that. I don't think we know about that. You mentioned that kind of before.
Yeah.
So you played in college? Or?
I played a little bit in college. Only 1 year. I got kicked off the team because of my addiction. And it's like there's a long story with that, but we'll not get to that right now. But yeah, so there's a league here in Israel called the Israel Football League, and we had a team called the Jerusalem Kings, which is since folded, but we're coming back next year, hopefully, if we can get a sponsor. Hint, nudge, wink, wink. Not that I'm trying to get a sponsor, but So yeah, so it was like, it was an amazing thing, and we played all over Israel. And like one of the beautiful things about playing all over Israel is that like the backdrops, you're in remote, right? It's like remote is separated into 5 different spots. Yeah.
So that's this northern neighborhood of Jerusalem where we are right now.
Yeah.
Remote is a very remote neighborhood.
It's not remote.
Well, if you live in Baca, it's remote.
Well, it's your problem, not mine. I live in remote. No, but in remote, there's a part of remote called Efes, right? Okay. And Efes, they wanted to build like this whole, like a whole thing, and they started digging for these houses, like digging the foundations. Yeah. And what did they find? They found a yeshiva from the first temple period.
What?
Exactly. It was amazing. Wow. And there were actually some scrolls there, but the moment they touched them, they fell apart. You know, which is
wow.
You know, which is, but then, wow. You know, it was crazy. Like they were able to get some of the views. Like think about that. You're just like, wow. It's like It's like we can walk up the road from here, and see like stuff from the Second Temple.
Wow.
You know, it's like Shmuel Navi, you know, Samuel the prophet, you know, where he's buried is right up the road over here. Like you see this road coming out over here, right up the road is over there. Like that's where he's buried, you know. It's like you think about it, like you know, you go through like the Bible, Shimon and Tzaddik, the Shimon the righteous, right? How do I say Shimon? Simon the righteous, right? Yeah. You know, he's buried like straight ahead that way. It's like you know, the Sanhedrin. That they talk about in the Gemara, right? Yeah. Right behind that, you see that tall building right there with the blue lights? If you go a little bit up that road right there, a little bit behind, there's hundreds of grave sites of the Sanhedrin, of people who are in the Sanhedrin, right? That's what, I mean, it's in a spot called Sanhedria. Right. That's why they got the name. Right. You know? It's like, that's where we're at. Yeah. You know, that's the beauty of here. And that's our history, and that's who we are. And that's one of the things as addicts that we always lack. Is we lack a grasp of who we are and what we are.
That's interesting that you say that. So I'm currently reading this book by Rabbi Abraham Twersky, and it's
Dr. T. I love him.
He's amazing. So I'm reading this book,
he's beyond amazing. He's phenomenal.
He really is. So one of the things he's saying is that the 12 steps aren't just for addicts.
100%.
That what he says is, you know, because he's a rabbi and a psychiatrist, and he dealt with these alcoholics. And he started to learn about Alcoholics Anonymous, and he said, wait a minute, we don't need psychotherapy for people who are depressed. We need to get them into some kind of 12-step program that's appropriate for them. Listen, and for people who have all these other issues, for all kinds of character defects, you know, you need some form of the 12 steps. He's saying it's amazing what he's talking about.
Let me tell you an even better story. Yeah. There's a program called JAX in America, right?
Yeah, what's that?
JAX is a program like an Alcoholics Anonymous, Narcotics Anonymous, Al-Anon, Nar-Anon, which is for the families of addicts, you know. And it's kind of like involved into like a umbrella organization kind of thing. Yeah. And so they invited, you know, this Rosh Yeshiva, who's the head of a big yeshiva in Baltimore called Ner Yisrael, Aaron Feldman. And they said, you know, it's like, here, we want to show you something. It's called the 12 Steps. Yeah. Aaron Feldman looked at it and said, that is an amazing piece of mussar. You know, and he's like,
which is Jewish ethics, which is actually what he shows in one of the books that I'm reading right now, is that he shows how basically everything in the 12 steps comes exactly from Jewish sources, or at least has parallels in Jewish sources.
Right, and then what happened? So Aaron Feldman took a copy of the 12 Steps and put it on every single desk in his base medrash.
Wow.
And then, you know, in the classrooms over there, he's like, I want all of you to do this. Wow. But we're not addicts, Rabbi. He's like, it doesn't matter. Right. It'll help build up your character. Right. You know? Amazing.
Pretty cool. All right. This episode of Hebrew Voices was sponsored by an anonymous donor. Thank you. Toda.
You have been listening to Hebrew Voices with Nehemia Gordon. Thank you for supporting Nehemia's Makor Hebrew Foundation. Learn more at nehemiaswall.com.